This is a very common issue amongst students. They study for an exam and they walk into the exam fairly confident, but when they leave the exam room, they say, I knew all of that stuff, but in the exam my mind just went blank. I'm going to talk about something that might be able to help you if this is a problem that you have. We're going to have a quick look at these words. We've got 20 words here. So square, prince, 12, coast, purple, dollar, help, horse, ring, light, guess, board, box, frame, drama, able, clock, witch, potato, house. Just have a look over those words, and I'm sure that you know what all of those words are. Take 30 seconds now to count on your fingers how many of those words that you can remember. How did you go? I'm sure that you remembered some of them, and you might have remembered 12, 13, 14. You might have done really well to remember 16 or 17. It would have been really hard to remember all 20 words. However, if I was to get those words back up, you're probably looking over this list and have that familiar feeling of, oh, I should have remembered that one. I remember it now. And this is the problem that a lot of students have when they say, I knew the words, but in the exam, when I got tested and was asked to reproduce them, my mind just went blank. The issue here is the difference between knowing something and understanding something. And when you read that list of words, you understood what all of those words meant. But you didn't really know those words. You hadn't learnt that list of words. To know something, you need to be able to reproduce it without looking at your notes. Is this what you're doing with your study? Are you spending time trying to be able to reproduce your study notes without looking at them? A lot of students won't do that. They'll look at this list of words and read over it. And this could be looking at their textbook and just reading over the textbook and just saying, I know what this word means, square, prince, 12, coast, purple. I know all of these words. And reading over the whole list and saying, I know all of this. What you've really done is understood this list, but you haven't really known it because you weren't able to reproduce it without looking. So in my study, I need to be working to learn my study notes, but at some stage I have to be able to say what my study notes are or go through my study notes in my head without having my study notes in front of me. So in this list here, it's not very useful just to read over this list over and over and over again. At some stage, I need to read over the list without having it in front of me. So I could read over this list at the start and say, I'm going to start just with this first column and say square, prince, 12, coast, purple, dollar, help, horse, ring, light. But now I have to try to say all of them without looking at them. So I remember there was square, 12, coast, prince, purple, dollar, help, light. I can remember 8 of them, but again my mind went blank. I understood them, but I haven't quite known them yet. So I go back and look again. Square, prince, 12, coast, purple, dollar, help. Okay, the 2 that I missed on the first time were horse and ring. So now I'm going to try to get this list down again. Square, prince, 12, coast, purple, dollar, help, horse, ring, and light. But I have to try to say them without looking at them. And this time I might say I remember square, prince, 12, purple, dollar, help. The 2 that I forgot were horse and ring, and there was light. And now my mind's gone blank. And if you've got that feeling where there's just one thing and your mind went blank, it's because you didn't really know this list. And the process of study should involve this, going backwards to these notes, trying to be able to say them without looking. And the more and more you do it, the easier and easier it will become. And eventually you'll be able to say this list, or recite your study notes, or remember an amount of work without having to look at your notes. And that's the point that you need to be when you go into the exam room. When you go into the exam room, you are going to have to reproduce those notes, and you're not going to have them in front of you. So therefore, in the study process, you need to have some stage where you're learning those notes without having them in front of you, and where you're able to say them without having them there. So if this is you, that you know the answer but your mind went blank, I'm going to suggest that you've probably been studying a lot with your books in front of you, reading over the work again and again and again, but never closing the book and trying to recite what was in the book without looking at it. And so what you need to do is to come up with a system where you are learning that work, taking it out of your textbook and putting it into your head so that you can reproduce it without looking at it. The first step of that should be writing some summary notes and then learning those summary notes, and there'll be another video on this channel about how to write summary notes.